Hello people, welcome back to Edbet Leadership. Today we're going to be diving into one of the most talked about priorities in organizations, but yet one of the least consistently understood. And what am I talking about? Organizational culture. But before I go on, I would like to seize a moment to give full credit to the author of a brilliant article that I read recently. And the title of the article is "To Change Company Culture, Focus on Systems, Not Communication." And this article was written by 5 individuals: Benjamin Leke, Chidebere Ogbonnaya, Yasin Rofkani, Thomas Goni, and Marcelo Mariani. Their work, published as part of the Elgar Encyclopedia of Leadership, is some of the clearest evidence I've seen about how culture really works in an organization. So let's talk about it. You know, executives love to talk about culture. They'll call it a strategic imperative. They'll launch values campaigns and update mission statements and deliver passionate speeches about trust and purpose. But here's the paradox. For all the talk, something isn't landing. Often, the louder leaders talk about culture, the more performative it feels, especially when actions don't line up. And when culture is mismanaged, organizations don't just lose trust, they lose traction. The research team studied 164 senior leaders across North America, Europe, and Asia. Now, what did they find? They found culture isn't forged in slogans or vision statements. It's forged in meetings, in moments of leadership action, and in everyday decisions. Now, pause for a moment. In your own organization, where do you think culture actually lives? Is it in posters or slogans, or in the way decisions get made day to day? So I'd like to make 5 key points. So there are 5 key points to consider, I'd like us to consider about organizational culture. And the first point is culture isn't a campaign. One of the biggest mistakes leaders make is treating culture like a marketing campaign. Posters, slogans, Slack emojis, empathy workshops. The research showed that in companies launching these campaigns, 72% saw no improvement in trust or engagement a year later. But in companies where leaders changed behavior, how they ran meetings, how they gave feedback, trust rose by 26%. One executive put it perfectly. We didn't announce a culture shift. We just started acting like it mattered. So, before you brand culture, embody it. Think about your own leadership team. What's one behavior you need to change before you could credibly talk about culture? And my second point is, values don't count until they cost you something. A global bank talked about equity but kept bonuses tied to revenue. Trust dropped by 12%. Meanwhile, a telecom company tied part of the leaders' bonuses to team development and feedback culture. Retention improved by 18%. What's the lesson here? Employees don't measure values by how often they are named, but by what leaders are willing to sacrifice to uphold them. So, in your organization, pick one value and ask, where would living this cost us money, speed, or control? Then act on it consistently. Also, what's one value your organization declares but rarely demonstrates when it's inconvenient? And my third point is, silence isn't alignment. Leaders often assume silence equals agreement. It doesn't. The study found 69% of employees regularly withhold feedback. Why? For fear and futility, they hold back. One tech company flipped its approach. Instead of anonymous questions, employee councils read the hardest questions aloud in town halls. The result was trust rose by 32%. And the takeaway is that culture isn't built by asking for feedback. It is built by how leaders respond when feedback is hard to hear. So authority figures and top management, at the next town hall meeting of the company, let an employee share one tough observation about culture. Don't defend, just listen and act. Also, in organizations, you need to ask, what's the hardest question employees wish they could ask top management, but they don't? And my fourth point is the peck illusion. Perks don't equal culture. Unlimited vacation, free lunches, wellness stipends. They can feel generous, but often backfire if workloads and expectations stay the same. In one case, perks increased burnout. In others, employees felt perks were a distraction from deeper problems. By contrast, organizations that fixed structural issues, clearer boundaries, better management, conflict resolution, saw burnout drop by 22%. So it might be advisable to cut one perk and use that budget to fix a real workflow problem. So ask yourself, what's one perk in your company that gets celebrated but doesn't actually change how people feel at work? What would happen if you redirected that budget to solving a real issue? And my fifth point is, middle managers can't carry what executives won't model. Culture doesn't cascade down from speeches, it radiates out from behavior. At one global firm, most managers felt responsible for culture, but only 14% thought executives modeled it. That gap caused burnout. In contrast, a conglomerate redesigned senior leader meetings to model culture directly. Manager alignment rose by 37%. And the message is simple. Middle managers can't carry what executives won't model. So invite a middle-level manager to observe an executive meeting. Ask, what felt aligned with culture and what didn't? If your managers watched your senior team in action, what would they see, alignment or contradiction? And these are my closing thoughts. Here's the bottom line. Culture doesn't fail because people don't care. It fails because leaders don't shift power. They talk about trust, but make decisions in backrooms. They talk about accommodation and diversity of opinions, but reward conformity. They talk about empathy, but penalize dissent. And that's not just true in organizations, it's true everywhere. Now think about families. Parents may say they want openness, but if decisions are made without listening, or if children are punished for raising uncomfortable truths, the culture of that home isn't trust, it's control. Think about schools. Teachers may say they value curiosity, but if the system rewards not only test scores and punishing questioning, then the culture is compliance, not learning. And think about society at large. Politicians talk about unity, but if the structures of power still silence or ignore certain groups, unity becomes a slogan, not a lived reality. Across all these spaces, culture only changes when leaders change first. The research we've explored highlights three levers that really shape culture. 1, power. Who gets to decide and who gets heard? 2, risk. What leaders are willing to lose to live their values? And 3, modeling. What leaders actually demonstrate. And if those levers don't shift, power, risk, and modeling, nothing else will. So, think about your own sphere of influence. Maybe it's your workplace, maybe it's your family, maybe it's your school, your community, or your circle of faith. Which lever needs the most attention right now? Power, risk, or modeling? And before you announce your next initiative, whether it's a new family rule, a school policy, or a community project, I'd like you to stop and ask, what are we asking people to believe that we haven't yet proven through our own behavior? Lead that first, then name it. Because whether in organizations and families, schools, or society at large, the only culture that lasts is the one we live. And I'd like you to consider that.